Welcome to A Chat with Heart. I'm your host, Christina Martin. I'm a singer-songwriter. I live on a dirt road with my best friend Dale in rural Nova Scotia, Canada. A Chat with Heart is just me having chill conversations with people I want to celebrate and topics that I'm curious about. If you have a question or a comment for this podcast, call my Heartbeat hotline, 1-902-669-4769. To send this podcast even more love, visit me online at patreon.com/Christina Martin. I'm so happy you're listening. Our personal stories have great power to heal, influence, and inspire. All we have to do is show up for the conversation. If we just talk about it, we could shine a light, we could break a dark day. If we just talk about it, we can cut away, we can make a brighter day. I'm so excited, y'all. I got my Work Play Everyday Planner in the mail this week. I love it because it has a quarterly goal tracker, weekly habit tracker, space to practice gratitude. I think my favorite is the habit tracker. This is the first planner that has kept me from going out twice a year to find a different planner. Yeah, I'm committed to this one. Thanks, Betty Sue. She was a guest on season 2, a woman of many talents. She created this planner, Work, Play, Every Day. Check it out. If you're old school like me and still like to use physical planners, I do use it in conjunction with my Google Calendar. All right, so I'm done with the holiday season. It was lovely. Got to see family and friends, which is always a treat. I'm also happy to get back to routine. I love my work. I don't know if y'all can relate. I feel better physically and mentally when I'm tinkering away at my passions. I suppose my binge watch, but this has nothing to do with the holidays. No, it might. I mean, we spent a good chunk of the holidays binge watching episodes of Will and Grace. So that's kind of one of the things this past year that Dale and I have been, that's been our guilty binge, I guess. I don't need to feel guilty about it. It's such a great show. So we're at the end of season 8. I don't know if any of you watched Will and Grace from start to finish. Growing up, who would have thunk that there'd be a time that we could rewatch the shows that we missed? Because we could never, like growing back in the day, I mean, I was not someone who planned my life around a show. I know other people may have done that, like for Friends. I know my friends every week would try to get together to watch Friends together. I didn't do that. I didn't watch a lot of TV back when I was growing up. I would watch movies, VHS tapes, beta in some cases. But yeah, I never would have thought that someday we could just have all these shows at our fingertips. And in any case, Dale and I have been catching up on Will and Grace. We're almost done. And we're also, the other thing we've been hooked on tour, has helped us keep smiling, laughing. Smartless, the podcast with Sean Hayes, Will Arnett, and Jason Bateman. Sean, of course, is one of the stars of Will and Grace, and I love watching his work and listening to those 3 gab on the podcast, Smartless. Okay, friends, 2024. I feel like I'm really getting to the good stuff, you know? I hope I'm right. Like, even if I'm not, I'll keep going. I'll be okay. But that's the feeling I have right now, that it's going to be a good year. Like, a lot of energy, focused work, clarity, great collaborations. Like, I feel really excited right now. That's, it's giving me a lot of hope. And, Another thing I wanted to chat about, it can be scary to share your goals out loud. Sometimes you want to be careful about who you share your plans with, so that, like there might be people who just out of jealousy or whatever stomp on your heart and plans. Hopefully not, but it does happen. So you can be precious about your plans and your goals, but I'm going to share with you that I really want to write way more songs this year than any other year of my life. So I tallied up the songs I've written since 2000. That's when I started. That's when I wrote my first songs. And you know what? I don't think it's been that much. Like 23 years. I feel like I should have written more songs. So here we go. In the past 23 years, I've written 160 songs, but I've only recorded and released 94. That's 164 if we're including live and covers, and 169 including remixes. But I'm not satisfied. No, I'm grateful. And there's a lot of work that went into all of that. And then launching them, I spent a lot of time on the marketing phase of things. And there were certainly other things in my life going on. But anyway, at this point, I feel like there are only excuses as to why I couldn't be writing more songs. Only excuses and the stories that I tell myself as to why I can't make time to do it. The truth is, I haven't prioritized it. I had other priorities: touring, videos, album launch, podcasting, personal growth, all necessary. Not bad by any means, but now I want to write more. It's a big passion of mine. Helps me figure out life stuff. I'm curious about other people's lives, and songwriting is a way I can spend time exploring other stories, other artists' work. I want to listen to more music and read more. That has always helped me in my songwriting. And I just want to play with music and words more. So more. Wish me luck. If you're following me for free, or if you're a paid member on my Patreon, you'll be the first to know how me writing way more songs is going. Do you have a goal or dream you'd like to share with me and my little heartbeat listeners on a future podcast episode? If so, call my heartbeat hotline, 1-902-669-4769. Leave it in a voicemail or send me an email. I can read it on the podcast. You can even attach a voice note. But my email is christinamartinmusic@gmail.com. Okay, so are you feeling stuck in a slow pile of sand with cat poop all around you? Would you like a helping hand to help guide you to gain clarity and stay on a healthier path for your mind and body? This is not a paid advertisement at all. I'm excited to have the opportunity to introduce you to somebody I think can help you get unstuck. My guest on this episode of A Chat with Heart is Bangs. Hailing from the UK, Bangs is an award-winning spin instructor who's guided thousands of people to find their best selves on stationary bikes. Her classes were so popular, people started asking her to coach them off the bike. And so her life coaching journey began. She's an accomplished public speaker, an author, and the former fitness editor at Elle UK. She's a believer in the power of movement and mindset to change your life. I just joined her new online community at studiobangs.com and bought myself a stationary bike so I could spin with her from the comfort of my home, and I love it. This episode is a fabulous one to kick off a new year with. Yay! Can I just say that I really enjoyed the 70s rock ride this morning with you? Congratulations on launching Studio Bangs.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
We're gonna talk more about that. But first, I just wanted listeners to know that I was at Studio Bangs online this morning. I basically let go of my habits for a couple days and turned into a miserable human. And then today decided that's not going to happen. I've got to get back on track. So I started my day with my routine, and then I made the ride with you part of that routine. Got my heart rate up, I sweat, and it was great. And then I was thinking in this ride, one of the first things I wanted to ask you about was how I read that you said you were a couch potato at some
Oh
point in your
yeah,
life. And
big time.
how did you get, like, what was that time of your life like? And then how did you get turned on to fitness?
Excellent question. Yeah, I was the president of the Couch Potato Club, like big time. Yeah, it's a responsibility I took very seriously.
Really? Yeah. Very nice.
Yeah, I this would have been so when I was young, all through my teens, I was a dancer, and that's very much what I thought my career was going to be. At this
Okay.
point, young me thought that I would now, at this stage of my life, be like a big time choreographer. Just like moving around dance studios, wearing lots of floaty clothes, clicking my fingers,
Yeah.
just giving big kind of like colorful hippie vibes is very much where I thought I'd be right now.
Right.
Um, and so I was always, obviously, as a youngster, very active, creatively though, never really a sporty person at all, but I loved to dance. That was my life. That was my world.
Wow.
And I was very intent on becoming a full-time dancer. But in order to do that, you have to make that decision when you're really young. And I would have had to have made the decision at 16 to go to dance school full time. And I just felt too young to do it, and didn't really have, I just had like the basics of a high school education, and thought maybe I should do a little more education wise before I make that choice. And so I went on to university, and I kept dancing in my spare time, but gradually released the notion that it would be my full-time lifelong gig.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I, went to university, left university, and moved to New York for a while.
Oh, where did you
And
where did you grow up though before New York?
oh, England, yes. So
Okay.
in the north of England, in Leeds, and then I moved down south to London and was there for many years. And so I moved from London to New York.
Okay.
And once I got there, just I was fresh out of university. I was interning. I was making no money. I was literally like, I remember there was a day when I walked 80 blocks because I couldn't afford to take the CBA. It was that kind of a lifestyle, in your early 20s when you're like, yeah.
Yeah.
And so I didn't have the money to do dance classes or be active in the way that I knew how. And I'd never really been a gym person. So gradually movement just kind of drifted out of my
Mm.
life to the point where I just all of a sudden it had been years and I hadn't really done anything, and I basically reached about the age of 29
Mm.
and was getting winded going up a flight of stairs, and was like, oh, that doesn't seem like a thing that should be happening now. And at this stage I then moved back to England and just had a bit of a wake up call where I was like, I just feel really unfit. I just
Hmm.
don't feel good.
Yeah.
And so I decided, okay, I want to get moving somehow. And somebody had told me that boxing was a really good way to kind of get your cardio up. So, I mean, talk about diving in at the deep end. I just like signed up for a
Yeah.
boxing class, and kind of the rest is history, really. I absolutely fell in love with that. I went once a week, and it was like me and 30 dudes, and just,
Yeah.
doing all of this kind of boxing conditioning. And I just absolutely fell in love with it. I just got hooked on the endorphins, and I think especially when you have been really unfit for a long period of time, when you get into something and you get hooked, you see and feel yourself getting fitter really quite quickly. And
Right.
in terms of like, okay, week 1 I could do 10 sit-ups. By week 4 I'm able to do like 25. I was just seeing those hashtag gains quite
Hmm.
rapidly at that point. And then at this time in my life I was blogging, and very eagle-eyed PR person had seen me talking about boxing and like mistakenly thought that I was really fit at the time and asked me if I would like to run a half marathon and blog about it. And I was so cocky because listen, I had at least 4 weeks of boxing under my belt and I was like,
Right.
sure, I can run a half marathon.
Super
And
pro.
yeah, I had literally not run since like primary school, but I was like, sure. I didn't even know how far a half marathon was. I just like blindly agreed to it. And so began this love affair with running,
Okay.
which lasted several years. And I ran 13 half marathons and 2 full ones and a bunch of other little races in between. And that was like very hardcore my life at that time. And I would get groups of women together and we'd train and run half marathons in Paris or Berlin or I was very big in the running game. And that led to people asking how they can train with me. I wasn't actually really trained in anything. I was just a chick who liked to work out. So eventually I was actually writing some newsletters for a spin studio at the time. And I really got on with the owner. And I was hanging out at the studio one day and kind of overheard a class happening. And I was like, I think I could do that. And she was like, thank God, I was hoping you would ask. So she got me trained up as a spin instructor. And here we are.
And here we are. I don't know if I took spin classes 20 years ago, my first spin class, I think at university. And I just loved it. I wouldn't do it by myself at the time because these were hour-long classes on the bike. And they were so hard that if I wasn't amongst a group of people, I would have quit. Because but how I felt afterwards, and it kept me going back.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I've ever worked out as hard. I've done boxing in high school. I was in a boxing club, never sparred, was too afraid to get my teeth bashed in.
Same.
Yeah, but the training was incredible. So do you think we need to explain what a spin? Why don't we just? Some people might not know what a spin class is. I mean, maybe they think you just spin and like until you puke, and it's more of a purging thing, like activity, which
Perhaps it is for some. I don't want to rule that out. Spinning is just kind of, you're on a stationary bike, and a stationary bike has what we call resistance on it. So you kind of just think of it like gears on an outdoor bike. The resistance is just like a twiddly knob in between the handlebars. And you turn it up to the right to make it harder, more difficult, add more pressure under the pedals. You turn it down to the left to make it slightly easier. The type of style of spin that I teach is rhythm based. So you ride to the rhythm of the music. And I do it in a way that is, my style is, I guess, quite holistic. I'm very much about empowering you mentally as well as doing the physical, because I don't think you can really separate the two. So I like to coach in a way that is quite emotive and motivating. And I'd say that probably from there's traditional spin classes at like a big box gym. Which they are all kind of trained in a certain way, which is more based on kind of metrics and things, as opposed to the style of the style of coaching that I do. So I'd say that's kind of what makes my classes, if they're a different experience for some people, I think that's probably what differentiates me from I never talk about numbers. I never talk about heart rates or BPMs or any of those kind of things. I'm all about the vibe and just like feeling it in your body. And I feel like it's a real kind of heart connected, soul fulfilling activity that I want you to feel really emotionally connected with, as opposed to like, this is a chore of a physical thing that I have to get out of the way. Sorry, my dog really wants to be involved in this conversation.
Is that Biggie?
This is Biggie Smalls, yeah.
Biggie Smalls. Oh. Yes, oh, hey, Biggie Smalls. Yeah. Well, he like really loves to be in the meetings.
Everybody has to go through him. He's like the bouncer of this house, I think that now that he's assessed the situation, he's probably okay with me continuing.
Do you think? I mean, I'm cool with it. It's funny. His face is directly in front of yours, and all I see is his ears and his eyeballs and his mouth. And oh, that is hilarious. Wait, did he do that
Okay.
or did you give me the
I
thumbs
think
up? Literally, some. I
I
think
think it
Biggie's.
was me, but I don't know. Like, there's some update has happened on my computer, and I don't know how I'm doing it. But this happens in like any kind of FaceTime or Zoom
Yeah.
conversation I'm having. I've had thumbs up. I've had like random fireworks and balloons have appeared on my screen before. I don't know how I'm doing it. I'm
I, uh,
magic.
I thought it was Biggie Smalls, like responding to what I was saying. And
That would be amazing. That's like
yeah,
the
it would
next
be.
step in AI, I feel, for dogs to communicate with us that way. It would be very helpful sometimes. Okay, I'm going to get you down.
Okay. So, I mean, maybe this is a ridiculous question. Maybe the answer to, everything else is just online. But for you, like, what was it your audience that was like, hey, can you offer these classes online? Like what led to Studio Bangs, which is not, by the way, all spin classes, which I love. It's let's talk about that.
Yeah. So when I left the UK was kind of right at the start of COVID. I left there in May 2020.
Ooh.
And so we'd gone into lockdown in London in like March. And at that point, I hadn't announced that I was leaving. And I'd been teaching there for like 6.5, nearly 7 years. And I taught anywhere from 7 to 10 classes a week at those studios. And I had a group of people who those were my people, for like
Yeah.
6 years. And it felt awful, to be honest, to leave without being able to say goodbye. Was really, really heartbreaking for me. And lots of people said at the time, when we first went into lockdown, I don't know if this happened over here, but we were told in London that it would be 3 weeks. We're just going to lock
Yeah.
down for three
Sure.
weeks.
We all thought that
And
at first. Yeah. And
yeah,
then eventually we thought it would be 10 years. It went from like 3 months. So this is never going to change. We're never leaving our
this is life now.
communities. Yeah.
Yeah. So during that period of time, I think we hadn't actually like fully settled in during those first 3 weeks after I announced, like, yeah, I'm out of here. People started to say to me, oh, I really want to keep riding with you. I hope you teach classes online. But like at that time, so early in the pandemic, it wasn't really a thing, like, I mean, Peloton existed and people were doing that. But I mean, I was having this conversation the other day with someone of like, when I look back on it now, I think we owe like fitness instructors just like such a debt of gratitude, because I don't think we appreciate, I definitely do now, having just set up my own studio, but we don't appreciate how fitness instructors during that time, seemingly overnight, just kind of started teaching things online, and like what it took for them to do that,
Right. Yeah.
But for me, people would saying to me, we'd really love to do online classes with you. And that just seemed like, I was just like, okay, cool. Like there was no way I'm moving countries. We're in the midst of a pandemic. It just was like, I couldn't get my head around that being a thing in my life. And I moved over here and I found work as an instructor, heading up this studio and whatever. So I ended up doing that. And I would still have people from London reaching out to me and saying, like, I wish I could still ride with you, especially whenever I posted videos of me teaching over here. And then I moved to Montreal in the summer, just this summer, and because I'm not really particularly proficient in parlaying the Francais just yet, that has become a real barrier for me in terms of trying to find work here. And I was just kind of spiraling a few weeks after I moved here of like, what am I going to do? Because I can't, anywhere I want to teach is asking me if I speak French, even though everybody teaches in English. It's very strange. So one day I was out walking the dog and I got opened up my Instagram and had a message from a random girl on there who said, I'm sure you get this all the time, but if you were to teach online classes, I'd be the first person to sign up. And I think it's just one of those things where she just caught me on the right day at the right time, where all of a sudden I was like, oh yeah, I should totally do that. Like, and so, the place that I moved into here is 2 bedrooms, and that the second bedroom had just been like the junk room because I didn't know what I was going to do with it. And then that day I was like, I should get a bike and put it in that room, and I should just make this a thing. And so, yeah, my last few months has been quite the education in
Yeah.
trying to figure out how to do all of this and put it all together and get it up and online and running.
I mean, I guess the benefit to doing this now or in recent months would be that because there is a learning curve with the technology side of things, I imagine. And when you're,
Can say that again.
and I'm saying this for as a musician during the pandemic, having to go online and just, I mean, I spent a lot of money on testing this and that, and went through the, internet issues, and then it's also a whole other experience when you are you're doing something to a camera and not in front of human bodies. So
Yeah.
I know now I want to ask you how's that feeling for you? Like, I mean, it's still fresh.
Yeah, it's really interesting because, my life has been very online for a long time. Like I was, I guess, really quite an early adopter of blogging. Like I started blogging in 2007, and that was, I guess, like by today's terms, I would have been referred to as an influencer back then, but it was still, everybody was kind of establishing their thing. But that's what I did for years, was blogging and being involved with brands and all that kind of thing. And so in terms of writing, I've been very online. I was very, very uncomfortable for a really long time in filming myself. And, I had a little stint where I tried to do a bit of YouTube stuff, and
Yeah.
it was really uncomfortable for me. I didn't like it. I didn't like that feeling. And I kind of made a point with my Instagram, I would say over the past kind of year and a half, really, to just get comfortable. I made, I think, a couple of little videos on Instagram, and I would get really good feedback from people. People would message me and say, I wish you would do more of that kind of stuff. I love hearing
Yeah.
you talk, and
Uh,
I think what you say is really impactful. So that was nice to get that kind of messaging from people when it's something that I feel I've really struggled to kind of find a comfortability with and a groove with. And I kind of, to be honest, I credit those videos that I've done on Instagram with kind of laying the foundation of me getting comfortable enough to do that on the bike. I mean, obviously, I've been teaching at spin for like 10 years, and I've literally taught quite literally thousands of people. I have no problem being up in front of people. I do a lot of public speaking too. And so I have no problem kind of addressing a crowd. But there is
yeah.
something about like a camera being in front of you that is just very odd. But I think I now, maybe it's something to do with me knowing that like Studio Bangs is my thing, and these people are very much opted in for this thing. I
Yeah.
really do imagine that I'm right there with you in the room. I just imagine you're right there with me and I'm just talking to you. And so I kind of, obviously I see the camera, but it's just me in that room with the camera. Biggie's wandering
Yeah.
around doing his thing, and it's there's a comfortability. I think if I had to do it like in a studio with people watching me do that, I'd feel a lot more self-conscious perhaps.
Right. Yeah.
But because it's just me, and because it does feel so intimate, and I've only just started this thing. I know I've only got kind of, a few members. And so it feels very intimate and personal. And I want it to, as it grows, I want it to continue to feel like that. So I'm
Hmm.
very much trying to cultivate that kind of a feeling of the intimacy of it, because I imagine people are in the same kind of position, whether you're like on your bike in your spare room at your house, or
Hmm.
maybe you've kind of you've taken your phone to the gym and you're using the bike at the gym. But I want you to feel right here with me. I want you
Yeah.
to feel really connected in this with me. So I think that is something that I'm really trying to cultivate. But it for sure hasn't come easy to me, just getting that comfortability with the camera.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like in a way you kind of imagine you're talking to one person. You know your mission. You remember your why, and I get all weirded out with that stuff as well. And I have to go back to why am I doing this? What is the point of this specific post? Just and also like I have to remind myself, I don't know if you do, to just be myself. Like
Oh,
calm the fuck
100%.
down and just
Yeah.
be be chill, be myself. I mean, or at least some version of that.
It really has been a process to get comfortable with.
Bangs and a bun, Instagram. That's your
Hmm.
Instagram handle. I love following you on Instagram. I find
Oh,
every
thanks.
time I listen to your posts, I'm like, oh my God, this is so helpful. What this is just
Oh,
great.
thanks.
Yeah, and apologies if I don't say so or leave a comment always. I think a lot more people, like one thing I've learned through posting as well is there are a lot of people listening and getting it, even though you may not know, they may not hit the heart or the
Yeah,
like button, because there's just so much going on and they're distracted and they're
yeah.
moving on, but they're getting it. And so, and they're grateful. That's, yeah.
Thank
Uh,
you.
I just want to jump back. Just what are the other things that people can find at Studio Bangs? I know there's Pilates, stretching, some weights.
Yeah, that's my current offerings. Yeah. So, um, one thing I had to learn as I was moving into this online space, when I'm teaching in a studio, the classes are like 45 minutes. Very occasionally, you might do a 60-minute. Um, as I was researching moving things online, generally classes were like 30 minutes. People are just trying to kind of fit them in where they can fit them in, right? And
Yeah.
you're also, generally speaking, you're not in a nice air-conditioned studio space, where you're going to be really comfortable within that space and cool for 45 to 60 minutes. So online people tend to prefer 30 minutes. So I went with that. Usually within a 45-minute class, I would do one of the tracks within that is just weights, right? So you're
Mm.
still sitting on the bike, but you would just do some weights. I didn't want to do that within a 30-minute class. I wanted the 30 minutes to really give you your kind of bang for a buck. And then I thought, well, I can do a whole kind of separate series of just like 5-minute arms. So again, I just want to cater this to people who are like, maybe you're short on time, or you just want to be able to fit in a quick, like 30-minute thing here, a 20-minute Pilates thing here, a 5-minute arm track here. And you can kind of piecemeal this as you want to do it. So, yeah, I've got 30-minute spin classes, a series of stretching sequences, which I'm going to be doing more of like mobility type of stuff, because that's just playing a bigger role in my own life, in my own fitness journey right now as well. And then I have those 5-minute arm tracks and short Pilates sequences.
I love it. I love it. I like if I only could do Pilates and spin, if that's the only thing I could like, I'm set. I'm so happy. I love
I think
both
that
of
they
those things.
complement each other really well.
Hmm.
I think Pilates just really helps to offset everything that you do on a spin bike, where you feel kind of, you are quite kind of hunched over and in this particular position. Then doing the Pilates just opens everything back up again and
Yeah,
gives you that kind of nice breathability within the body. So yeah, I really like the combination of the two.
I love it. I'm so glad you did this because I too had been wanting you to start up your studio, and because I live in a rural community, a lot of and
Right.
when I used to live in the city, I loved going to spin classes, and now I might have to drive 40 minutes one way and back and then back, and I'm just not going to do it. And
Like a lot. Yeah.
yes, so this is really great. And another one of your offerings is life coaching for individuals and groups.
Hmm.
Who is this for? Who is this not? Who do you not want to life coach? And 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 how can people sign up? Because I think it's great. I think professional, I don't know, adult development. This is, I think we should all be like always signed up for coaching of some kind. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the people who I have coached have found it immensely helpful. And I think I'm glad that it's kind of becoming part of the culture more, right? That people understand that this is an option and this is a thing that they can do. Who do I coach? Tends to be women 30 plus. And generally, people tend to come to me frankly, when they're just sick of themselves, when
Hmm.
they've just kind of reached a bit of a crossroads in their life where either they've tried a bunch of things and it's just not working, or they just feel really stuck.
Yeah.
And they know they want more, they know they want change, but they feel overwhelmed or intimidated, or like, I don't know what the thing is. I don't know what the missing piece is. And oftentimes you just need kind of like an independent third party, to just be able to kind of be there and guide you to what that thing might be. So for people who don't know what a life coach is, I'd say, to be honest, it kind of goes really well hand in hand with therapy. I think that I'm very pro therapy also, by the way.
Me
Therapy,
too.
I think, is like helps you to get to the core, core of an issue and help you kind of understand the why, perhaps. Life coaching helps you to take action on that now, right? It helps you to kind of really implement that understanding in a practical way within your life. And I have to say, it's something that I love doing. I feel like, funnily enough, it's all kind of connected to the bike, because the entire reason I started doing it was that I got so much feedback from people saying, I wish that you could coach me off the bike the way that you coach me on it. And that kind of lit a fire under my arse to look into it.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how that's the genesis of that and how it all started. But I tend to coach women 30 plus. I have this group coaching starting in January, for the month of January. And so group coaching, I tend to do kind of a few select times through the year. And then I do one-to-one coaching. There's a couple of different packages and ways that you can work with me on that. But my whole coaching is based around consistency, because I just really believe in the importance and the power of habit and ritual and being consistent. And I think that really is actually the foundation of being able to kind of achieve anything in your life, is just repetition, habit, ritual. And embedding that within your life, it's super, super powerful once you're able to do that. And I just love coaching people on that.
So if you were like coaching somebody and then they didn't know before coming to you that they had like massive, like, I don't know, daddy issues, and you recognize that this was like this was like a serious, like traumatic thing that needed, I don't know. Is there a point where you're like, I'm not going to touch that, but I will continue working with you on these things, but I really need you to seek out like these other specialists for this particular, like, do you do that too?
For sure. There's some people who I've kind of, I don't want to say refused to work with, but who I've said, I'm not what you need, actually. Like, and with like all the love in my heart, I'm saying therapy is probably the best option for you, right? Because of something like that. I've had some people reach out and say, I have this and this and this. And I'm like, actually, I think therapy would be the best place for you to start, to be able to kind of dig into that and unpack all of that a little bit first.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a point where if somebody has a lot of those kind of issues going on, you can't really make the progress you want to make in life until you unpack those things, right? You have to seek the appropriate help in the form of whatever form of therapy that might be. And then once you've kind of got a handle on those things, then it kind of opens you up to being like, okay, now that I know what this is and I have more of an understanding of it, now I can, move forward and do actionable things that I can implement in my life. And then I can come in and help you. But, as I said, I love therapy. Maybe, at some point 20 years down the line, I might retrain as a therapist because I just do love it. And I would love to be able to help people on every step of their journey. But I also am like, I know when I'm out of my depth and when something isn't my field, and I happily redirect people to therapy.
Now, forgive me, I might sound old here. Well, is the Murmuration a newsletter, or it's more than that? Okay, it is. Okay, so it's okay to say newsletter.
It's okay to say newsletter. Yeah.
Oh, thank God. So I am a member of your. I signed up to get your newsletters, which I also love, and I've been wanting to have you on here for a while, but the last Murmuration that I got was like, oh, I need to invite her now. Like, this is the time, and I'm gonna read through one at a time, and then you can comment on these. The newsletter, in the last newsletter, you had sent the 5 top things you've learned this year, which totally resonated with me, and in a way, I was like, I hate to see other people suffering, but at the same time, I was like, hallelujah. Like, I'm not alone. And I'm not,
Mm.
I'm not like, I can, I'm not alone. There, I'm not alone.
Hmm.
And we don't always, growing up, no one sits you down and goes, look, things are going to get rough. You know, things are going to get rough. If you really want something, you're going to have to work your ass off. Like, I feel
Mm.
like my memories are all like, you can do whatever you want. And if you just show up, it'll happen for you eventually. And that's not a complete, that's
Yeah,
just
nobody gives you the roadmap that goes with
right.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, okay. One of the top things you've learned this year was choose your discomfort. Oh, if you could uh, elaborate on that.
Well, I think if I'm to just relate it very directly to my life, the reason that was a lesson for me this year was, I've moved to Montreal. I'm in this situation where, okay, I can't find work. What am I going to do?
Can't speak French yet.
Can't speak French yet. Lord knows I'm trying. Duolingo is my bestie. I can either be uncomfortable in staying here and struggling with doing that, or I have this option of starting an online studio, which I know is going to be really hard because I've kind of resisted the idea for a while because I know I'm not a very technical person. So I know there's a discomfort that awaits me there. But this bit that I'm in right now, super uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So those are my choices. I can either be uncomfortable over here or I can be uncomfortable over here, right? So I decided I'm going to choose the discomfort of growth,
I
right? So
love
I
it.
can choose the discomfort of stagnation, which would have been what it was if I'd have just chosen to not do this studio. Okay, I'm just going to stay here and be in the discomfort of this struggle. Or I can make this struggle worthwhile. I can make it mean something. I can transform it into something
Yeah.
that is ultimately going to get me closer to where I want to be. But I have to surrender to the fact that it's also going to be uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just need to make a choice of where I want to be. And that was a big lesson for me this year of like, it's not like you come up with the solution, aha, online studio, that's it. And then it's like rainbows and unicorns over here, right?
Right.
That's its own struggle, that's its own discomfort. But I'm going to choose that time and time again, right? Because either path is uncomfortable. You just have to choose which one you're willing to stick it out at.
Yeah.
That was my big lesson with opening the studio this year.
I love it. I call it you're choosing the path with heart, which isn't the path of least resistance, but path, yeah, to choose the discomfort with that leads to growth. I love that. That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Number two, your habits anchor you. You touched on this earlier. I completely agree. What happens to you when you must have days, or maybe you don't, where you're just like, I'm not doing a goddamn thing.
Okay, this is going to make me sound like an asshole. I don't have those days anymore. I may have days where I don't want to do anything, but I won't do anything like the work I had scheduled or the cleaning I said I might do. I might not do that, but I will still show up and do my habit. So for me, my habits are I journal every day. I work out or I should say, I move my body in
Mhm.
some way every day, right? I read every day. I try to anchor myself in those are my non negotiables because if I don't do those things, definitely nothing else is getting done. Those are kind of the foundations for me of my day.
Yeah.
That they're like my North Star. That's my compass that kind of keeps me mentally where I need to be, and they make everything else a lot more manageable for me. So I think particularly during this year of frankly chaos, if I was to think of one word for this year for me,
Oh, you
would
poor thing. But
probably
yeah,
be
chaos.
chaos.
Uh-huh.
The first half of my year was pretty unpleasant. And then I moved provinces. That's a big upheaval.
Yeah.
Trying to get settled in, where there's a distinct language barrier where you're living. starting a studio, just chaos, lots of chaos. So my habits during this time have been the thing that have just kind of helped me to exhale, right? It
Mm-hmm.
helped me to just kind of like relax my shoulders when everything else just feels like wrought and uncertain and sometimes unhappy, and numerous other adjectives. My habits bring me home, right? And I that's why I'm such a big proponent of it. Like if I didn't have my habits in place and my rituals and my routines, Lord only knows what this year would have turned into for me, right? Like without having those things to balance me and guide me, I would have been all over the shop.
Yeah.
So I'm such a big believer and proponent of it because I can speak to the power of it in my own life, right? I think once you have given yourself enough time to really make something a habit and a ritual within your life, and you're over that hump of it being an annoying kind of chore that you
Mm-hmm.
know that you're like, oh, I have to fit this in every day or whatever. Once you're over that hump with it, and it becomes and you ritualize it, and it becomes somewhat sacred to
Sacred.
you,
Yeah. Yeah.
then it's it's I will not compromise on that. Like those
Wise.
have to be the foundations of my day. Yeah.
Yeah. I notice when I don't, make that sacred time, do my habits. Basically, I have a habit tracker, and when I go off track, I feel it, and I'm
Mm,
miserable pretty quick.
yeah.
Start to spiral. It's more of a mental health connection for me because I don't usually go too far off the physical side of things, but just mentally, I need it, and I need both. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm with you there. Your habits anchor you, but I'm glad to hear that you don't go off. That's a really good tip. Like, just don't. Just stop saying, "Oh, I can take a break, a vacation from all these things." Just don't. Just keep those sacred. Maybe it's
Yeah.
three things or two things or even one
Yeah.
thing, and don't sacrifice those. I'm going to
Yeah.
stop sacrificing those
Yeah.
things.
And also the habits and rituals I have, I really enjoy them, right? So
Hmm.
I'm less likely to veer off because they're not annoyances, they're not inconveniences in my day.
Hmm.
They are the best parts of my day, to be
Yeah,
honest, you know? And not to get too kind of woo woo with it, but like
go for it. We like woo woo.
particularly journaling and moving my body every day,
Yeah.
you know, there is nothing more important than your physical and mental health. So my journaling, and you know, I live alone. I have lived alone for years. This thumbs up again.
I love it.
Hey,
Wait a minute. Was it seeing that? I don't know. Maybe it was
then
reading
when I
my
try and
mind.
do it,
Maybe it reads my mind and I'm giving you the thumbs up and that's showing up on
okay,
your screen. And that's how AI is working right now.
that's a twist. It's a
So,
twist I didn't expect, but I like it. Um, yeah, I live alone and I have for years. And if I didn't do my morning pages as a journal where I just kind of brain dump anything that's going
right.
on, where does all that go? You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
it's just me kind of ruminating with my thoughts. And frankly, I would drive myself nuts if I didn't
Yeah.
write, if I didn't have this practice of physically getting it out of my brain and putting it somewhere. Like I really enjoy that process. It also really helps me to process and make sense of things. And sometimes I'll write something down and be like, oh yeah, I was totally overreacting about that thing. Or sometimes I'll write something down and be like, oh, that was some BS, and I need to look at that. And you know, so it's a really, I find that just like so good for my mental health. And then moving my body every day. Sure, I work in fitness, but you know, to be honest, I taught spin in London for years, and that's all I did. I just taught spin, and I didn't really move my body in any other ways. And that I definitely felt that in my body. So I've really reprioritized that now. And I think especially as I get older, I just I'm just honestly in awe of my body and what it'll do.
Hmm.
And I have such reverence for the power of it. And every day that I'm gifted to be able to move my body it's a celebration of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I again, that's sacred to me, because what a gift to be able to do any of it at all. It can be taken away in a heartbeat. Like, I don't mean to get like really like woo woo, but like
No, do it. It's a chat with
just
heart. Yeah, go for it.
this past week, I've had, you know, numerous people in my life have been, there's a couple of people in my life have had horrible losses, like people close to them have passed on, people who were, you know, in their 40s who've lost their lives. You know, I'm having a friend of mine is really struggling with infertility. I have, you know, numerous people in my life going through very difficult things with their bodies, or managing an injury or illness. Or one of my friend's mothers had a stroke recently and has just gone from being very active to not being able to do a thing at all. And like the trauma that my friend is going through, witnessing that in her mother, I think you reach this age, I'm 42 now, and I'm just noticing it with myself and my friends, where this role reversal is now in full effect. We have to parent our parents. We have to be the carers. And to see this circle of life come about so fast, I'm not ready for it, right? To see, thankfully, my parents are, touch wood, in good health, but that thought is still there of like that you can't, life is undefeated. You know, aging is undefeated. Like, we're all here for a finite amount of time. And so I think as you get to a certain age, you watch your parents age, and you just, for me at least, I've become hyper aware of my body and what a gift it is to be able to move it in the way that I can move it, and be able to kind of love on it in this way, which is really how I view it, right? Of like, I do at least a couple of sessions a week of like just 45 to 60 minutes of just like mobility and stretching. And that just feels like honoring my body in such a loving way. And, you know, when I'm on the spin bike and I'm going nuts, and like, I love being able to like get out that kind of frantic energy. Or, you know, when I'm lifting weights, it's very kind of devotional and intentional, and I can visualize my muscles all working together in those moments as I work them out, right?
Yeah.
And I think about, even when I walk the dog, I think about everything that has to be happening in my body for me to put one foot in front of the other. And I just think, wow, this is a miracle that I'm doing this. Right. And that's just walking, but I'm just like, wow, I'm in awe of it all the time. And I don't want to get to, you know, 80, 90 years old. I look at, you know, both of my grandmothers, one passed when she was 94, one passed when she was 85. Both of them, really quite restricted in the way that they could move. One of my grandmothers was like riddled with arthritis for years, and my other grandmother but when you look at that, it was just a generational thing. Like, fitness and working out was not a thing for them, right? It was never kind of pitched to them. So I watched them age in a way that you will age if you don't move your body. And I'm like, okay, I don't want that to be my reality. Then I look at my mum, who's like 75 and goes to the gym as much as me, and it's just like, she's active, she's moving, she's like very fluid in her body, she can still move really well. And I'm like, great, okay, so then me at 75, I'm going to be like a next level too, because I've been moving my body for X amount of years, and that's like just such a practice in my life that I'm hopefully going to be really mobile and active and fluid as I get older, which is just going to make aging hopefully an easier process for me. But I think at any given moment that could be taken away from me. Yeah. And I don't want to be in that situation. If it, God forbid it ever is, I don't want to be sitting there thinking, I wish I would have.
Right.
You know, I wish I hadn't taken this for granted. I wish I would have moved more. I wish I would have done this. Yeah. No, I'm going balls to the wall. I'm riding till the wheels fall off. I'm doing it every day, because it really is a gift that we're able to do it at all. You know, and I think to not move your body and to just take it for granted in that way, you will be that person who gets it taken away from you in a heartbeat suddenly, God forbid. And something happens and you get an injury, or this happens or that happens. And you will be the person who's sitting there thinking, the one thing I want to be able to do is move my body. I had all these years where I could have done it, and I just told myself I can't be bothered, or, you know, this is on TV now, or I'd rather do this, or right. You never prioritized it. And so I just am like, life will show you
Right.
one way or another what you should have prioritized, you know?
Well, that leads us to stop telling yourself you can't. I know a lot of people want to lose weight, want to start a fitness routine, and they just maybe that's part of it. They just tell themselves, I can't do this. How am I going to start? Who's going to keep me going? And so that's one thing you learned this year. But yeah, did you tell yourself you couldn't start an online studio and you?
Oh, I've told myself I can't do a lot of things in life. You know, I think this time last year, I was in Nova Scotia telling myself, I can't move. I already moved. I already did this. I already moved from London and I already tried to build my life here. And my parents are here, so I have to stay here now. I can't move. I have to stay here.
Right.
And of course, as soon as I uttered those words out loud I'm like blessed to have, parents who are just want nothing more in life than for me to thrive and do what I want to do. The second I
Yeah.
said, I can't move because you're here, they said, no, we're not doing that. You're not
Good.
going to stay here. Yeah, they said, you're not going to stay here because of
Oh, wow.
us.
You are
Right?
blessed. A lot of parents would be
Very,
like, yeah, you can't move because we're
very.
here. It's like,
Right? So that
that's
they were just like,
great.
absolutely not. You're gonna go where you feel you can thrive and be your best and be happy. And geography is geography. We'll figure it out. And
Wonderful.
so that was like, thank goodness they were supportive in that decision. I told myself for years, I told myself I can't work out, I can't run, I wouldn't run for the bus. It was just a story I was telling myself, right? And it
Mm,
becomes your narrative and it becomes your identity. For years, I told myself I can't start an online studio because I don't know about technology. And once I made the decision, I said, that's okay. I just don't know it yet.
yeah. Yeah.
We can all learn, right? I may have done it. If there was an outsider looking in, they'd maybe be like, Jesus Christ, talk about taking the scenic route. Like you could have done this, like you've done it in like 27 steps. You could have done it in 12. Well, that wasn't my journey. I had to learn it in the
Yeah.
way that I had to learn it. But I've gone from I can't to I think you find I bloody well can. And I have, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it is just about whatever story you're going to tell yourself. And there's been many times in my life where I've said I can't do something, but when I've made the decision to just eliminate that from my vocabulary and opt to find a way, then the doors open for you once you make that decision. But it's a mindset thing, and it
Yeah.
takes cultivation. It's not an easy choice. It's not like you flip a switch and you're in it. You have to cultivate that mindset and that way of thinking. But it's really freaking powerful when you do.
Yeah. I completely agree. I
Yeah.
agree with a lot of things you say. There's not one thing I disagree with yet. Seasons for planting versus seasons for the bloom. Oh, this one really. I'm still in the planting. It feels like.
Yeah, and I think that was a big lesson this year for me.
I'm going to assume that just has a lot to do with how we expect instant gratification, or of course we want to
Yeah.
avoid discomfort and pain and then things that are unpleasant to do. And when you're trying to build something from nothing, maybe there's great examples out there and guides and mentors. That's great, but you still have to actually do the work.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I mean, that's for me. That's now that I'm looking back on the year as we're rounding it out, I'm like, yeah, that's my whole year really has been planting season. And I don't think I necessarily have viewed it that way until I really sat down and thought about writing that particular post. And I wish in a way I had given myself that grace at the start of the year of just acknowledging this is going to be a planting season, right?
Yeah.
So that was my expectation, to plant and to find joy in the planting and to understand that planting is a process and that planting takes time. And right, like I think my year would have turned out very differently had I done that. And so I think I'm going into 2024 fully with the acknowledgement of like, my first 6 months is planting. I'm still going to be planting my first 6 months, right?
Yeah.
Still doing that. My harvest isn't going to come yet. And that's okay. Like it's probably going to come the back end of next year. And I have to hold my nerve and I have to have patience and I have to just have faith and keep working and keep planting and keep watering and know that the bloom does come. But I think there's been so many steps of this year that has been planting, kind of detaching myself from the situation I was in where I was living before, and then moving to a new place. Okay, now I'm planting because I'm trying to build roots somewhere else. And then all the additional planting that comes when you first move somewhere, right? Just like building roots, trying to find community, getting used to where you live, learning the streets, learning all the things, learning all the nuances about these new space and places that you're in. And then starting a business. Okay, well, it's not like you start it and instantly you've got, 100 million customers and things are great. You're still planting. Like all of that work I put in to launch the thing, and it was work. Like, it's funny because I kind of did all of this work and learned so many things, and it just seemed to take forever. And it was like whack-a-mole. I'd solve one problem and then three more would crop up. And it was intensely frustrating and intensely difficult. And I call it a learning mountain rather than a learning curve, right? It was just, there was so much of it.
I like that.
And I did that and I launched the site. And I remember I did it at like 2:00 on a Friday afternoon, just because that's when it was ready. So I was like, let's go. And I just did it. And it's like, there's part of you is like expecting like a ticker tape parade or like a marching band comes out of nowhere, or like you want like the celebration of this big thing. But the reality is you did all that work and you just got to the start line.
That's right.
I just got to the start line, right? So it's one crop. I've just planted one crop. And now that I've launched, okay, now I need to plant this other crop of like building and getting the content up there and reaching people and getting the word out and messaging and marketing and blah, blah, blah. All of these are different crops. Yeah. So I'm still planting. And that's another, might be 6 months or so. So that's been such a lesson for me. And I think I'm going to have such a different year this coming year because I'm going into it acknowledging like, still got a lot of planting to do. Right. And so I'm not kind of expecting an instant bloom, which I think is what we all kind of expect really. When we make a change, we just want it to be effective immediately. And it's like, that's not life though. You kind of got to wait for the bloom to happen.
Yeah. Acceptance is a big thing for me. I have to go. I just need to, this is where I'm at now. My timeline hasn't maybe panned out as it maybe things were easier 10 years ago or, and so I'm going by what the industry was rolling like 10 or 5 years ago, and it's changed, drastically. So what's the reality now? And then moving to this acceptance and what can I do instead of like, what's not working? What's the problem? It's like, what is working? And then thinking a little bit more outside the box and then just patience and pushing through. And
that's so powerful. To get to a space where you say, what can I do? Yeah. Right. Is so powerful. And I love that. What can I do? Like rather than being stuck in the like, oh, I can't do this. And this is a blockade and this is blocking me. But to be able to kind of step back and say, okay, even with all of these things kind of blocking my progress, there's a window here. There's a slither of something I can work through. And what can I do in that space? Is like, it's so powerful when you get to that.
Number 5, which we talked a lot about already. I just want to, because we said there were 5 things, top things you learned this year. The 5th was physical and mental health are everything. What are the things you do to treat yourself other than the obvious ones like physical workouts? Do you eat a certain way? Do you guzzle water all day long? Is sleep important to you?
Yes to all of those things. Yeah. I do eat a certain way. I do drink a lot of water, which again is taken. I'm 42, and I would say I've probably only really gotten those things right this year. Or I say right for me. What's right for me might not be right for someone else. But I've found a good flow with it that works for me. That I think is like, okay, that's going to be fairly easily sustainable now for me. Yeah. And I think probably one of my biggest challenges in terms of mental health is, I live alone and I'm quite an introvert, and I do have I have very good friendships, but they're all back in the UK. So all of my kind of communication with my good people is like, we're separated by a time zone and an ocean and all of these things. And I think part of my mental health struggles come with very much feeling like I am alone because I spend so much of my time alone, and I carry the weight of my problems and things by myself, and it's all in my journals, but for the most part I'm carrying it myself. And I think probably one thing that I really do want to do more of this year is just be more open in conversation with my friends who are constantly kind of telling me I should do that anyway, right? And I think it's just trusting that those friendships are there and they've lasted this long for a reason, and that we have to have these tough conversations within friendships sometimes, right? Of like, not everything's rainbows and unicorns for everybody all the time. We go through difficult things. As I was sharing earlier, I have, multiple friends of mine are going through really difficult things at the moment. And it's like, this is the stage of life where, especially as that role reversal comes in terms of parents, where we each are carrying even more of a load, right? Because it's not just our own struggles. And perhaps if you've got children, you're dealing with that too. And you're dealing with a relationship. And then you've got parents who you now have to parent. And it's like, it's kind of like you just kind of go to a next level at this kind of age, where I think naturally more mental health struggles and stress come with that. And I think, for me, one of my big lessons this year was like, I did carry a lot of this by myself, and thankfully had friends who reached out and were like, let's not do that. So I think that's probably like my biggest hurdle. Because all the rest of my habits and things are very solo, right? And they do keep me anchored, and I do find them very helpful. But without our physical and mental health, like that's the foundation of everything. Can do nothing else if we don't have these things in place, So I think I would say for everybody, to whatever degree you can, you have to prioritize that within your own life, in order for any of the rest of it to go anywhere near the way you want it to go. Those two things have to be essential, non-negotiable. You've got to figure out some kind of a way to anchor yourself and honor those things within your life, and do so in a way that helps you function at your very best.
It's hard for an introvert to I don't know if people would even guess that you were an introvert. I'm very similar in that way. I love a lot of time alone. I need a lot of time alone.
Same.
But then I torture myself by going through things on my own when I know I don't need to. I could reach out to a friend, and if a friend needed me, I would not hesitate. Or if I sensed a friend needed me, I wouldn't hesitate. So why would I rob myself of, that my friends want to do the same for me? I know they do, and they do. So I've been working on that too. But as a fellow introvert, I know it's tricky. It's tricky.
It's really hard. Yeah,
we like our alone time, and
sure do.
But no pressure. But will there be a 70s rock ride 2, 3, and 4?
Oh, I think there has to be, because I had a blast making that playlist. I think I say in the ride, like, my dad helped. He because that's his zone, right? And he loves to help me pick out tracks and stuff. So I think I had so much fun making the playlist, and it is kind of, to be honest, that was like a real bonding thing for me and my dad. And it's like I really like to get him involved in it. So I would love to definitely do a 70s ride part 2 for sure, because it's just, oh man, there were so much great music in that era,
Yeah. Thank you so much for doing this. I took so much of your time. And
Oh, no, it's absolutely my pleasure. This is such a treat to be able to speak with you. I'm really honored that you even asked me. So thank you so much.
I don't want to say goodbye to you. Oh, I don't want to say goodbye to you.
welcome to the Heartbeat Hotline, 1-902-669-4769. I'm the host of A Chat with Heart podcast, Christina Martin, and I'm so excited you called. Leave me your question, a suggestion for the podcast, or a comment about this episode. please be aware your message may be used on the podcast and social media. Tell me your name, where you're calling from, and it's also fine if you want to remain anonymous. Thanks for listening. Have a great fucking day. Thanks for listening to a Chat with Heart podcast, produced by me, Christina Martin, co-produced and engineered by my husband, Dale Murray. Dale's a stellar singer-songwriter and music producer, so check out his website, dalemurray.ca. The podcast theme song, Talk About It, and I Don't Want to Say Goodbye to You were written by me and recorded by Dale. Visit my Bandcamp to find CDs, vinyl, digital music, and fun merch like custom-made puzzles and temporary tattoo packs. Become a monthly or yearly supporter of this podcast and my music endeavors on Patreon. If you're new to Patreon, it's a membership platform that helps creators get paid. I love it. Sign up as a free or paid member at patreon.com/Christina Martin. I would love it if you had time to share, rate, leave a review, and subscribe to A Chat with Heart on all the places you listen to podcasts. Wishing you, my little heartbeat listeners, a great day.